We don't have exactly the numbers of injured, wounded people or killed people because there's no connection there. It's I guess we receive the numbers a little bit later, but right now we guess it's thousand because it's not stop the fight there.
The mayor of Hostomel, which is not far from you, was reportedly killed by Russian troops. Can you tell us anything about that?
It's my colleague. They just bring try to help with the evacuation, bring the food, and make the green corridor. In this moment, he was killed. Uh, it's no rules right now. We see how many schools, preschools destroyed, how many civilians died in this war. The Russians explain it's just war against the Ukrainian soldier. It's not. It's not, because it's thousands of the people right now around Ukraine injured, killed, and we see what Russians do it with Kharkiv. What they did with Mariupol. It's actually cities destroyed. It's civilian buildings. It's hospitals, schools, preschools destroyed. Senseless war. And we see there's no rules.
The former president has praised Vladimir Putin's moves as very savvy and as genius. Do you agree with him?
I do not think anything savvy or genius about Putin. I think Putin is evil. I think he's a dictator. And I think he's murdering people right now.
And Mike Pence said that there's no room in the Republican Party for Putin apologists. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Any update on your conversations with Congressman Gosar and Greene?
Yes, I've talked to Greene. I'm still waiting to talk to Gosar. I've talked to him.
But you said, I think you told Jake and Manu that there's no place for...
There isn't no place for that. There's no place for what has gone on with that organization by far, and there never will be in this party, and it will never be tolerated.
And will she go again?
No, she will not go again.
Will she get any repercussions for her?
Look, my conversations with my members are exactly that, and I appreciate you asking.
Well, on this topic, I mean, 3 years ago when Steve King made comments that were sympathetic to white supremacists, you supported kicking him off his committee.
I removed him from committee.
Yeah, and obviously Greene and Gosar are already off their committees, but you said in November that you'd return them to their committees and use that they might even get better committee assignments. Do you stand by that still?
They have the ability to be able to get committees based upon that time when it comes.
Secretary Blinken, yes or no, do you believe it's possible to get the Ukrainians MiG-29 fighter jets? If so, when and how?
First, as we've said, the decision about whether to transfer any equipment to our friends in Ukraine is ultimately one that each government will decide for itself and has to make. We're in very close consultation with allies and partners about the ongoing security assistance to Ukraine, because, in fact, I think what we're seeing is that Poland's proposal shows that there are some complexities that the issue presents when it comes to providing security assistance. We have to make sure that we're doing it in the right way. You heard from the Department of Defense just yesterday about the particular proposal, the prospect of fighter jets at the disposal of the United States government, departing from a U.S. NATO base in Germany to fly into airspace contested with Russia over Ukraine raises some serious concerns for the entire NATO alliance. So we have to work through the specifics of these things going forward. And it's not simply clear to us that there's a substantive rationale for doing it in the way that was put forward yesterday.
The U.S. declined to help facilitate the transfer of jets to Ukraine yesterday. Does the U.S. want the Ukraine to get jets, and how urgent a priority is that?
So let me give you an update on the status. As of now, the Secretary Austin, Chairman Milley, and members of our Defense Department are in touch with Ukrainian counterparts, NATO counterparts, discussing what are clearly logistical challenges here. And I would note, Josh, that in the statement put out by my colleague at the Pentagon yesterday, he made clear that obviously the a proposal from yesterday that fighter jets manned by Americans departing a NATO base to fly into airspace contested with Russia raises serious concerns for the United States and NATO. So the logistical questions here, just to put a little fine point on it, are things like, how do you get planes into Ukraine in a way that is not escalatory?
Why can't the United States put those planes on trains or automobiles? I guess, are we really to believe that when we're sending or preparing to send billions in aid, that, you know, this is the logistical bottleneck that is stopping us from getting them those planes?
Well, it is a serious logistical bottleneck, right? Obviously, there's obvious concerns that the Department of Defense has spoken to about flying planes from U.S. air bases, right? That they spoke to yesterday. These planes, carting them down the street, I think, is not as easy as you may think it is.
So John Kirby's line is that transferring the planes, or the latest iteration, was not tenable. Are you saying is what's not tenable the arming of the Ukrainians with jet fighters, or is it merely the logistical things you're speaking to?
I think the Defense Department spoke primarily to this, and they were very specific, Jeff. They said fighter jets manned by Americans departing a NATO base to fly into airspace contested with Russia raises serious concerns for the United States and for the NATO alliance.
What exactly would have transpired for the Polish government to publicly propose this idea of getting the fighter jets to Ukraine that the U.S. would then publicly reject? Was there at any point a breakdown in communication between the two countries?
Well, I think as our Undersecretary of State, Tori Nuland, testified yesterday, we were not made aware of their plans to make that announcement yesterday. So I wouldn't call that a breakdown, and I guess it's a temporary breakdown in communication, but we have a strong and abiding relationship with Poland. The president spoke with President Duda just last Friday. Obviously, the vice president is on her way there, not related to this particular issue, which will be worked through military channels, but it was more about the mechanism for how it would be delivered, and that is the issue that is operational, and we're still discussing.
Is it safe to say that the U.S. was caught off guard by the initial announcement from the Polish government?
I think we said that yesterday.
Regarding the Florida bill, in 1994, when many of us in this room were in school, President Biden actually voted for a much broader restriction that banned federal funds from being used for, quote, the promotion of homosexuality as a positive lifestyle alternative. Why did he do that, and can you describe how his thinking has evolved over the years?
Well, I think that you have seen the president speak passionately about his view that a bill like this, a bill that would discriminate against families, against kids, put these kids in a position of not getting the support they need at a time where that's exactly what they need, is discriminatory. It's a form of bullying. It is horrific. I mean, the president has spoken to that. In terms of his views and comments from 25 years ago, I think the most important question now is why are Florida leaders deciding they need to discriminate against kids who are members of the LGBTQI community? What prompts them to do that? Is it meanness? Is it wanting to make kids have more difficult times in school, in their communities? I would pose that question to them, and we can talk about it more tomorrow if you get an answer.
Was there a reason you supported the same policy, though, in the 90s when we were all in school?
I think what's important to note here is how outspoken the president has been against discrimination, against kids, against members of the LGBTQI+ community, and what we're looking at here is a bill that would propagate misinformed, hateful policies and impact children. So that's the question. I hope maybe you can pose that to some of the leaders in Florida. Maybe they'll return your phone calls, and I'll look forward to having that conversation with you.
On the COVID relief bill, unfortunately, you had to have 60 votes in the Senate, and we couldn't get 60 votes without taking money out of the state allocations that were in the rescue package. And that Republican obstruction required that we pass, now taking it off this bill, to separate legislation containing funding to continue the fight against COVID. Again, sadly, the Republicans insisted that every penny for the COVID be offset. And again, we fought to make sure that they didn't take any of the money out of the pockets of localities, but they did insist that it come out of the states. So in any event, we will have our bill on the floor today as well. Well, depending on how long this all takes, but that is the plan.
On the omnibus, a number of your members said that they felt blindsided about the COVID relief offsets that were in there. Why were they not looped in earlier into this process when this had been months and months in the making?
No, it hasn't been months and months in the making. This is when you're in a negotiation. And when you're in a negotiation, you do not weaken at the end. We had to be very strong to insist upon having the COVID funding.
You're blaming Republicans for the delay in the situation with the COVID relief, but you didn't have votes within your own party. Do you regret pushing this text out in the middle of the night?
No. That's the way it is. Let's grow up about this, okay? We're in a legislative process. We have a deadline for keeping government open. We have a lively negotiation. It has to be bipartisan. We want it to be bipartisan, but in the Senate, you need 60 votes. So when I say blame, you say blame. I'm saying because you need 60 votes, and they consider that a plus. I don't. And there has never been a bill, let me just be very clear, there has never been a bill that when it comes forward, and usually, well, it wasn't the dark of night, it was sometime last night, when it comes forward that somebody, I didn't get what I wanted in the bill. You're telling Noah about the flood. I didn't get what I wanted in the bill. So I say to my members, yeah, that's a negotiation, and that's the way it is, and look at what is in the bill and what it does for America's working families, what it does for Ukraine, what it does, that so much needs to be done as opposed to what you don't like about the bill. So we will pass a bill that gets it all done, and we will continue to work on that. But as long as we need 60 votes in the Senate, members are going to have to know there have to be compromises.